Hello, before we start today's episode, I wanted to let you know that I am doing a theatre show in Edinburgh on the 17th, 18th and 19th of December. The show is called Unquiet Objects and is 3 adaptations of classic M.R. James ghost stories in collaboration with Parrot Theatre Company. It is on at 7 p.m. in the Banshee Labyrinth on the 17th, 18th and 19th of December, and you can get your tickets at realLifeGhostStoriesPodcast.com.
So good, so good, so good.
Score holiday gifts everyone wants for way less at your Nordstrom Rack store. Save on UGG, Nike, Rag & Bone, Vince, Frame, Kurt Geiger London, and more.
Because there's always something new.
I'm giving all the gifts this year with that extra 5% off when I use my Nordstrom credit card. Santa who?
Join the Nordy Club at Nordstrom Rack to unlock our best deals. It's easy. Big gifts, big perks. That's why you rack.
A lot of supplement brands chase trends, but if you're serious about your health, we know research-backed science is what actually moves the needle. Momentous works with the best brains in human science to create every formula, and every batch is made of pure ingredients, tested for safety, and does not contain fillers. So you get the best long-term results possible. Creatine isn't just for muscle gains, it's essential daily fuel for your brain, body, and long-term performance. Momentous CreaPure Creatine is backed by leading performance experts like Dr. Andrew Huberman and Dr. Stacy Sims. Sourced exclusively in Germany, CreaPure sets the gold standard for creatine, delivering the purest form, creatine monohydrate, that's rigorously washed and never cut with fillers. With over 2,000 5-star reviews, over 112,000 customers have seen the results firsthand. With Momentous, the fundamentals are done right. Right now, Momentous is offering our listeners up to 35% off your first subscription order with promo code ACAST. Go to livemomentous.com and use promo code ACAST for up to 35% off your first subscription order. That's livemomentous.com, promo code ACAST.
Hello and welcome to mini episode number 488 of Real Life Ghost Stories. And I have one spooky story for you today, and this story comes from the 18th of September 2025. And our story today comes from Sofia. We moved into the house that we currently live in when I was 9 or so, and have lived here up to the present day. I'm now 15. Ultimately, we know very little about the property. Our next door neighbour has lived here for a very, very long time, and she claims our house used to be a church. My mom and I have looked into this, but we haven't been able to find any record of it. What we do know is that this house is old. The main house was built in 1957 or so, and the living room was a later addition added in 1996. Other than that, we know basically nothing about it. I come from a family of psychics on my mom's side, and the further I get into my teens, the more I am able to see ghosts and such. I found a lot of the ghosts and apparitions I see look almost like they're covered by a thin layer of TV static. And when I stare into the most haunted rooms of the house, they also look like they're filled with a hazy smoke-like quality and or TV static. Our house is very haunted. So I've decided to send in more or less a collection of shorter stories about things I've seen over the years living here. I suppose I'll start with Angelica. I've mentioned her several times before, so I think she's a good place to start. Angelica is a 17-year-old Italian from the 30s or 40s. I won't really go into how I met her here because I've mentioned it a ton of times before, but I've known her since October of 2023. Angelica isn't really like most ghosts. She can change her hair, her clothes, her shoes, etc. As of writing this, her hair is short and shoulder length. I don't know that much about her life or how she died, as she shares very little with me. But I think she passed from either some form of poisoning or illness. I do know that her father was some sort of rich lawyer or politician or some sort of person in power, and she grew up wealthy. I think she's from Florence, as she's mentioned it before, but I'm not 100%. From what I know about her family, she had an older brother who was in the military or the police force who she talks about from time to time. I think she had a little sister. As for her mother, she doesn't talk much about her, but from what I've gathered is that when Angelica was 3, something happened with her mother. I think maybe the birth of her little sister, who may or may not have survived, it's unclear. And mentally, she was never the same. What exactly happened, I don't know. I'm not even sure Angelica knows. After all, it was the 30s. She might have been lobotomized or have had some sort of mental illness that went untreated. But afterwards, she was never the same. And to quote Angelica, not all there mentally. Aside from that, I know she was friends with a blonde maid who worked for her named Mitzi. In the present day, Angelica has mentioned before she got to me that she spent several years posing as an imaginary friend for several kids. She's very sweet, but she doesn't care much for men. She doesn't go out for a way to haunt or bother them, but she can be sassy, and at times downright mean to them. She also has this thing where every time we go somewhere where it would probably be best to wear shoes, she chooses to be barefoot. But if we're somewhere where it makes sense to be barefoot, she'll wear shoes. I don't understand it. I'm half convinced that she just wants to fuck with me. I'm not the only one of my friends with an Angelica type ghost. My friend X has 2 of their own ghosts. Jenin and Gerald. Now, with all due respect, Jenin is a bitch. She's 19, died in 1999, likely in a train accident, and while she can be sweet, she has a very crude sense of humour and swears a ton. Every time X and I hang out, Jenin and Angelica argue. They can be civil, but they rarely are. A lot of times X and I will be talking and mentally in the background we can both hear Angelica cursing Jenin out in Italian. Gerald and Angelica are less confrontational with one another, and despite Gerald being a man, Angelica doesn't seem to mind him. In fact, I'd even call her fond of him. Gerald is the oldest of the 3. He died at 25 if I remember correctly, maybe 35. He's French and died in some sort of boating accident or drowned somehow. We know that he had a daughter and that he was forced to marry a woman despite being gay. X and I both have a hunch that he may have been autistic in his life. Unfortunately, he is often the target of Jenin's insults and or the butt of her dirty jokes. Part of me thinks that's why Angelica dislikes her, because for whatever reason Angelica is sort of protective of Gerald. Gerald doesn't talk much, at least not when I'm around him, but Angelica always makes the effort to make conversation with him and even gave him a hug once. Now, aside from Angelica, there are several ghosts in my house. I'll start with the animals because there's a lot of them. In our backyard we have an iris garden, and there's this little fat corgi that hangs out in them all the time. A lot of times they come running towards me and then vanish into wisps of nothing before they can reach me. There's a golden retriever that I see in our living room a lot, just lounging and panting like most dogs do when they lay in the sun. This makes me feel the need to mention that before our living room was a living room, that room was part of the backyard. I also see some of my parents' pets who have passed, specifically my mom's cat Soleil, an orange kitten that she had long before she had me, and a golden lab that follows my dad around. We're not sure which dog the lab is, as my dad had I think 2 or so when he was little, but they follow him all the time and lay at his feet. I also hear the sound of a dog walking up and down our wooden hallway when my dog is asleep in another room relatively often. The pets are definitely my favourite thing to see. Our living room has several ghosts of its own, as does the backyard, and I'm hoping to lump these ones together. To start, there's the maid. The maid is a woman with brown hair and a brown and green 1800s style dress, a white bonnet over the back of her hair, carrying a brown laundry basket. Every time I see her, she does the same thing. She stands in front of our couch, bends down to pick up her basket, and walks pretty quickly from the couch up the 2 steps to the hallways and vanishes. For the longest time I thought she was some sort of residual haunting because she always did the exact same thing. That is until one night I saw this strange green smoky outline of her walk out of the wall furthest from the couch, already carrying her basket, take 3 large steps forward and vanish. So I think she is a physical ghost or apparition, but I guess she's one that just really likes to keep a routine. Or maybe she doesn't even know she's dead, who knows. The next ghost I call the Lady in White. I see her all over the house, but she's most frequently in our living room and yard. She's a woman in a floor-length white dress with a long train, a huge white hat that covers her face, and elbow-length white gloves. She's more than a little unsettling. She's not malicious, but she'll lurk a lot, and she's always smirking, like she knows something you don't. Now I suppose it's time for the obligatory Hatman mention. Yes, our house has a Hatman, or is visited by him. Surprisingly, he doesn't do much of anything except stand in doorways and stare at you. Most times he stands at the doorway between the hallway and the living room. From that spot you can see straight into the next room. The first room you walk into when you enter the house. While I don't play as frequently anymore, I sometimes play piano in that room, and almost always without fail the Hatman would show up and stare at me from the hallway that leads to the living room, and stare at me or listen to me play. Then as soon as I would finish, he'd leave. It happened practically every time I played, like clockwork. He never lingered, and while he'll occasionally show up elsewhere in the house, like I said, he doesn't do much of anything. There's also a new ghost as of recently. In fact, as of writing this, I saw her for the very first time last night, and she scared the absolute shit out of me. Let me set the scene. It was roughly 4:30 in the morning, and I was sitting on the living room couch working on something on the computer, when I look up at the glass doorway that goes outside, only to be met with the sight of a woman. Potentially kneeling, potentially legless, potentially bursting from the ground, it was unclear. Trapped in the reflection of the glass, staring back at me. She was in a white collared dress or nightgown, with pasty grey skin and matted black hair. It almost looked like it was teased. Her neck was completely mangled, bent to the left, then up, then to the left again. I could see the bones a little too perfectly. Her jaw was agape in almost a sorrowful expression, and her smile was a little too wide. Her nose, while present, was sunken in and almost rotted looking. Her eye sockets were empty and reached up to her forehead and down to her cheek. She was only there for a moment, but she scared the hell out of me. I managed to calm down though, as I'm used to seeing pretty mangled ghosts. Like I once saw a man shopping in Target with the back of his head completely missing and blood gushing down his t-shirt from some kind of gunshot wound, like it was no big deal. Just not one staring at me from the reflection of my back door. I brought her up to my mom, and she said she felt like a man did that to her, and I agree. She has the sorrow of a murder victim, if that makes any sense. She intimidates me a little, but I also feel sort of bad for her. My mom thinks that she might be buried in our yard. We know there's at least one body back there, though there's a good chance that it's a dog or a cat. There's this title off to the side of our yard that is completely hollow when you knock on it. It's by a vine that our dog loves to walk under. But aside from that, we've often wondered if there's any humans buried here. I mean, churches are often accompanied by cemeteries. Then again, we have no real proof it was a church other than word of mouth, but still. On a different note, when I was about 9 or 10, right around the time I sent in my first story, something kept visiting our yard. I used to play out there far more frequently than I do now, and for about 3 months or so I kept hearing a female voice call my name from the side of the house. Not just my name either, but also a nickname that only my family calls me. The voice kept asking me to let it in. Around this time I also had a dream about a faceless woman with long brown hair in sort of medieval looking clothes, reaching her hand around the side of the house and trying to pull herself over our fence and into our yard. That really shook me up at the time. Also around this time I'd gotten bookshelves for my room that were still in boxes. Both of them leaned against my wall. For context, the main window in my room is right by the gate the lady from my dream tried to climb over. I was down there one day, and I think talking with my dad, when one of the shelves randomly leaned off the wall and fell on top of me. I don't know why, but I just knew it was her. It scared me and I started crying. We ended up putting salt on the windowsill, which is still there today, and she went away after that. More recently, since I've been able to see ghosts more clearly, I've actually had a ghost follow me home. I used to go to this youth group, and at one of the meetings I saw this man in his early 20s, completely naked except for sunglasses and a swimsuit. He was skinny with black hair and his name was Henry. He was incredibly surprised that I was talking to him, and in all honesty, I think I may have given him a bit of a crisis. He curled up in the corner of the room in the fetal position and just sat there. I thought that was the end of it, but a month or two later I saw him again. He was in the front room of our house, standing in the corner. He kept trying to ask me questions about how he died. I wasn't really sure what to say, and in all honesty I was surprised that he had followed me. I ended up being honest with him and basically told him, "Look, I'm sorry you're dead, but I don't have the skill set to help you. Please leave." He did leave, and in all honesty, I felt kind of bad about it. My dad always tells me to try and help the spirits that I see to pass on, but I'm not sure how. And also, I have a very not my problem mentality when it comes to ghosts. Mainly because ghosts do so much weird shit. Like one time I saw a headless man in a grey button-up with black slacks frantically yanking on the handle of a car door that was parked out in front of our house. He kept trying to break the window and yank the door open before he just dejectedly walked off. And I mean, part of me feels like I should have stopped him, and another part of me is just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Also once at Natural Grocers, I saw a woman just completely naked with waist-long hair, holding a basket and shopping for soap. She was dead, but it was also really strange to see. And part of me wonders, if I learn how to help ghosts pass on, do I have to start intervening? I'm not sure what I could even do to stop them. Like, "Hello, 911, there's a headless man trying to steal a car. No, this isn't a prank call, why do you ask?" But jokes aside, I kind of do want to learn how to help some ghosts some more. But as of now, I don't really know how, so I just stay out of it. Also, on the topic of ghosts being weird, last October I went on a ghost walk to this historic mining cemetery where a bunch of actors played the ghosts of people who were buried there. And I distinctly remember one actor pointing to the grave of her character's husband and saying, "Well, Joseph and I are so happy to have you." And meanwhile, the actual Joseph was just standing there glaring at everyone. In fact, most of the ghosts weren't happy about the actors or the people and kept trying to shove me around. Though I still think it was sort of funny. Going back to the house, I did see a gnome once. This was again when I was 10 or so. I used to play in our front yard and run up and down the street all the time to where this huge tree is. One evening I kept running up the street, circling around the tree and running back to our yard. And on one of my laps around the tree, I ran into this sort of apparition-like gnome. He had a pointy red hat and a yellow jacket, and I thought it was just a statue because it looked so much like your traditional garden gnome, but it startled me. Or maybe we startled each other. But I remember running back to my parents, shaken up, and my dad and I went back up the street to see if any of the neighbours had a garden gnome in their yard. And we found nothing. There's also Street Creature. I'm not sure if I've mentioned them before, but they're a shape-shifting shadow creature that we see around the house a lot. We spent a lot of time out on our front porch when we can, and a lot of times we see Street Creature around towards evening. They like to take the shape of a cat and duck behind cars before disappearing. I don't think they're malicious per se, maybe more mischievous, but they always leave me feeling a little unsettled every time we see them lurking around. This email has gotten rather long, and I could still keep going, but I think I should probably wrap it up. So here's some honourable mentions. Number 1, Bob, a weird shadowy mist that hangs out in the corner of my mom's bedroom. Creepy, but seems vaguely protective. I dubbed it Bob to make it less intimidating, to be honest. 2, the Antler Man, a teenage boy with no face and huge antlers that wears a grey t-shirt and walks up and down the stairs at night. Number 3, Dr. Misogynist, a 50s era doctor in a green jacket that also likes to pace up and down the stairs, often fucking with Angelica. I don't know his name, but I call him Dr. Misogynist because he talks down to women and often calls them ditzy. Angelica slapped them once. Number 4, the Soldier, a random male figure, sometimes in an army uniform, sometimes just a shadow figure, who sits in the front room and just does nothing. Number 5, the unnamed shadow figure that peeps around corners. Number 6, the Head, a severed head with its trachea and or spinal cord still attached, that just floats around the house and moans in agony. Number 7, the countless random shadow figures that come and go. And I think for now that's everybody. This barely scratches the surface, but I hope you enjoy some of the ghostly shenanigans that we have going on around here, and I can't wait to hear this on the podcast. I think that Sofia is probably one of our youngest listeners and has been here since they were 9, 10, communicating, sending stories, etc., which I absolutely adore. And I just feel like there's so much going on here. And the first thing I'm going to say is, and I always get really protective of younger listeners because I just feel like, you know, when you're 15 years old, you're going through so much already. Sometimes you don't actually need to be seeing all this shit too. I'm curious about your communication with these entities. Like, because I don't know anything about it, I've never experienced this. I mean, are you literally having conversations or are they all mental? Like, are they communicating with you in your brain, if that makes sense? Because I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't live like that. I couldn't have all these people that I can see all the time and all these conversations going on in my brain that I seem to have no control over. And I wonder if it's just for your own sake, if it's worthwhile looking up some exercises, some meditations, or something that you can do that is protective, that you can maybe just take a break from seeing all this stuff, because it just must be exhausting to see this kind of stuff all the time. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that I am really glad that you're keeping this ongoing dialogue with your mum and your dad. And I do think that you should be having an ongoing dialogue with the adults in your life about the stuff that you are seeing and experiencing on a day-to-day basis, because you shouldn't be sitting with this on your own. Like, even though, you know, I know that you're like, I just have a kind of whatever, it's not my problem attitude, but you know, it also still is your problem because you're experiencing it all the time. So I'm very protective of you, Sophia, because it's been such a long time that you've been writing into the podcast, and I just wonder if it's worthwhile looking up or trying to figure out some protective stuff that you can do around yourself, some meditation, maybe even like, I don't know, speaking to like somebody in your life who you can get all this stuff out to and have that conversation with, and keep that dialogue going with your mom and your dad that is positive, and you can, you know, have these conversations and say, look, this scary thing happened last night and I need to talk to somebody about it, because I do think it's really important. And if you are like a younger person who is listening to the podcast, who maybe has experienced something and you're feeling a bit like, oh, overwhelmed by it or freaked by it, maybe that's why you found the podcast, because you had an experience and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to make of this. You can talk to the adults in your life about it. You know, for the most part, the adults in your life will listen to you and they will engage with you and they will look after you. And it is really important to do that. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Sophia for sending in your stories. And if you would like to send in your stories, you can do so by emailing them to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you can get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
If you're a smoker or vapor, ready to make a change, you really only need one good reason. But with Zyn nicotine pouches, you'll discover many good reasons. Zyn is America's #1 nicotine pouch brand. Plus, Zyn offers a robust rewards program. There are lots of options when it comes to nicotine satisfaction. But there's only one Zyn. Check out zyn.com/find to find Zyn at a store near you. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.